Hi everybody, Mark Michaels here. Today joined with a very special guest, the 2021 NCHA Futurity champion, Open Futurity champion, Mr. John Mitchell. Did you ever think you'd hear those words?
I wasn't sure that was going to ever happen, to be honest, after the few times I've let it get away.
It's been a long road.
Yeah, it has, and I think now it's happened. It's probably a lot clearer that it was meant to be.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about what that meant for you that night, that feeling when the buzzer went off.
Yeah, I've come close before, probably 3 times to be honest, and when I cut every cow right, and the second cow was a lot of challenge and a lot of difficulty, and when I got that cow trapped with force in the middle and got to quit that second cow, I knew the run it had happened, like it was there and it had happened. And from experience, I knew to come cut a cow clean and needed to really finish, but not rush.
Right.
And so when the buzzer went, that cow had got a hold of the mare, and I'd made 5, 6, 7 turns, and it was happening, and it was between her and that horse. It wasn't involving the turnback horses a lot, like there was, and there was some difficulty even the last turn.
Yeah.
And when I rode through there, she checked straight down.
Yeah.
And that cow veered away. And right then when the buzzer went off and I had another challenge, I felt like you seen the emotion come over me quick, but it took a few seconds, but it was right there, and I thought, you know what, that's a run.
You'd given the judges everything that you could possibly do to put that run where it needed to be.
Yeah, totally, and I think the way I cut the first cow was a big brown Brangos heifer, and she'd been okay settling, she'd stand up the top, and then she looked a little close, in a few of them little deals.
Yeah.
And but when I told the boys, I said, I can push her. She'll go, but she won't, probably, she'll push me back. She won't be easy.
Yeah.
And that was the start. So it was them things that start, then the middle cow being tough, then the last cow locking on and letting her challenge her, but letting her still look pretty.
Yes.
Like lock on and have not just running and tearing around. And that's where I thought, I presented it.
Yeah. Well, it's been a compilation of a lot of hard work, obviously, from the years. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go. Where did Johnny Mitchell grow up?
Well, I was a kid raised on the coast, down from Sydney, actually in Bulli, and it's a different story, I suppose. Like I said in the interview, I say it because I hear things on the news or see things, and I was adopted, and I had just the best mum and dad you could ever have.
Yeah.
And I say that because I don't think it's an excuse to have problems.
Right.
Everyone gets a shot. And I use that. It comes out. I don't use it for any reason, but it comes out because it's amazing, like I said, how good people can be and how many people have helped. So mum's tennis partner, husband traded horses and sold insurance. Like dad he worked for his brother his whole life, earth moving equipment and plumbing.
Yeah.
And so I was a kid raised on the beach, mum and dad nothing to do with horses, and just loved horses because of Bob and Carol Wilson that mum played tennis with. They always had 100 horses around, and they sold horses, and I went to a horse sale with them every Friday. Never went to school Friday.
Yeah.
As a kid.
Really.
And so it was just meant to be as far as the horses are concerned, because even as far as you go from growing up on the coast, them people being, truthfully a massive influence on my life. Like they rodeoed, their boys rodeoed, and it was just a really cowboy family, and they were in Balgownie, and just all down the coast there, and it just kept going from there.
And what kind of horses were they?
Just riding horses. Yeah. Like they had running quarter horses, they had bucking horses, but it was trading horses, like just horses for kids to ride, someone to buy, ride around the beach, ride around the roads. It was just totally a cowboy deal.
Yeah. And so you did that, kind of like you said, going through school. At what point then, how did you transition to I want to be a horse trainer?
Well, you know what? I never did, Mark. I never transitioned. Mum and Dad hauled me to some shows as a little kid with a pony, that I got off the Wilsons. And we met people at them deals. So then there was a guy down the road from where we lived. He had a daughter that rode Western pleasure horses, and they showed a little bit Western stuff, and we got involved. And you meet people as you go, and then all of a sudden, I was going to Greg Gilpin's and getting lessons on Western pleasure and Western riding and English and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it just grew and grew and grew, and as you grow in that, all of a sudden you're one of the kids in the NCHA and you're showing and doing lots of events, and then cutting just popped out. Like when I say popped up, I noticed it, and then Graham Amos, they let me show a gelding down on the Southern Circuit one year, and old Paleface Moore, down the road, or however that really goes, is we ended up buying him, and that horse won title after title for me, and cutting was just, that's what I loved then, from all the Western pleasure and all that stuff. The cutting just popped out and was what I wanted to do. But I never said, I just kept doing it.
Just kept busy with it.
Yeah, I kept
Next thing
trying.
it was a lifestyle.
Yeah, I really never said, like, I know to this day, if Dad just popped out of the sky, he's probably, first thing he'd ask me, do I want a beer? Yeah. And the next thing is, when am I going to get a real job? Because horses were meant to just be a hobby.
Right.
So that's the way it was.
Yeah. And talk about that a little bit too. In Australia, obviously it's a bit different than over here in the States. What are some of the challenges as you got to that level where you started showing more? Obviously you got to start putting money in your pocket to make a living. What were some of the challenges you faced, during that stage?
Well, I mean, the people that know, would vouch for this, but it sounds a little harsh, but I mean, starvation will make you reach. Mm-hmm. Like, what I went through was, going working for Mouse, and which was probably one of the best parts of my life. But going and being the young guy and riding all the junk and dealing with, the rot that goes on with growing up and learning and trying to keep a business together and cattle, and it was such a push. Great times, right? Great times, right. But starvation was always right there, like whether you could afford to feed, and the people that helped me through that stage was unbelievable. Like the people just along the way, and the big one that stands out, which is leaving, half of my life out. But when I was in Toowoomba, and Mark Buttsworth took me out to Kilbeggan to work at Wayne and Margaret Knutson's. Them people had 4 boys, a massive place, like unbelievable ranch out there, or farm, whatever you want to call it. And but that was a turning point. Like when he let me move out there, and I had a lot of cattle, Mouse had always drummed into us, you can't do it without cattle. You can't do it without cattle. Like, he that was his theory, and I know why, because it's not, you got to make do, you got to survive. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to survive. Yeah. But when I got out there and seen, I bought a horse from over here, and then I'd had some success on some horses before I went out there. But, when I got to work fresh cattle every day and lots of them, I suppose it was years after working for Graham, but it really started to click with me, like, all right, you can do it. Yeah. But if you want to really do it, you're going to have to make a change,
Yeah, and that's obviously a pretty big level to reach to get to that point where you've got a job now, you've got access to the cattle, and now you can really put your talents to work.
Yeah, well, that was the reason to come over here, because, I was supposed to come over 5 years before I did with Darren Simpkins. He was at Winderdine. And, he was riding colts and starting to show a bit down there when he was there. And, Winderdine had, like, all through being a kid, like when I talk about for going from Greg getting lessons when I was real little, and then, I was allowed to show them Winderdine horses through the youth, and it was just that level of horses and going down and showing all them horses, it just, you know, you get more exposure to what it was like here, you know, with the ranch and the horses and the deal. And I'd come back and forth in youth team, non-pro team, and come to the Futurity several years in a row, fly in, stay at Bar H, stay on the floor of the bunkhouse on the couch, some Australians working there, blah, 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 you know, and then Paul and Winston were just phenomenal to me through them years that, you know, I don't know who they weren't, because it was like a zoo, and them guys kept their focus and won, and were you know, some of the best horse trainers will ever be, and them guys were so open and catered to people and let people come, and it was just a stepping stone all the time from all the things in Australia. Wayne and Margaret let me, I know I was getting older by then, you know, that's where I left. You know, I can remember sitting on the four-wheel motorbike after a guy basically built me a barn, was gonna build an indoor. You know, Rick had won Australian title on a mare I bought from him, and I'd bought them 3 or 4 good mares. Like, it was all happening in front of me there without even planning it. Yeah. And then, you know, I remember sitting on the four-wheeler telling him, well, I barely can pay for the lucerne. The truckload of lucerne, and you're still giving me all this stuff, so I think, you know, I best take a chance. And they tell me I can go and look at some jobs. So that's when I come over, and Darren had already been here a few years, you know, and worked at Pete's, and then he was back here at Ben's when I flew in, and Glade had approached Ben about getting someone to ride some twos and build a business just selling twos. And you know, Darren wasn't interested, so he palmed that off onto me. And
you saw the opportunity.
Well, yeah, and I was ready. You know, like I'd gone through all that other stuff. We'd try to jam in there and have a lifetime of hopping back and forth where I rode and as a kid and coming up. But that's how it set me up. I'd seen what was here. I knew what was here. And then I was very fortunate to land where I landed.
So Glade's been involved, Glade Knight's been involved with cutting horses since 75, I believe, got the ranch out in Richmond. And then in 97, you come into the scene and you guys buy Slate River Ranch in Weatherford here. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, when we talked, I flew up there and met him, we talked. He took me out to the place out there, and I actually rode from a broodmare to a yearling. I broke in a colt that day just visiting with him and just, you know, interviewing me. And but that's how it happened. Now, he'd had horses. He grew up on a ranch himself as a kid, and he'd had cutting horses before me and stuff like that, and never really had a serious horse trainer or nothing like that. Just played with a few things, and so when we put it together, I flew in. He gave me a soft top Jeep, and I lived in an apartment in Arlington. He had a lot of apartments at that time all through around here, Texas, you know. So I always went looking for horses, and we put a set of horses together. That was a Playdox and Bob Smart Chance. This place here was one of 4 or 5 we looked at. After we looked at them all, the discussion on this place, it was too much. We looked at, you know, like 3 or 4 acres behind Garner School, and looked at the rope and pen over there on 281, and there was a little place down on the interstate. At the time, I think it was Glen Blankenship's. And we looked at that place just over the bridge there. There's a motorbike track now. And so we looked at all that, and so we went back to Virginia with a set of horses we bought. There was Playdox and Chance, and I hope I tell you right, but I'm going to say 10 yearlings. I remember I pulled the divider out of the back of the 6-horse, put 7 in it because I was used to doing that at home, and we sent the others on a transport and drove back to Virginia.
So then we transitioned. You get the place bought here, and you quickly build up the numbers here. I mean, you within a few years went to standing several studs here and several name brand studs. Obviously, like you said, it all started with Playdox, and then you had That Sly Cat, Mr. Boonsmore to you, Bob's Freckle. You had a bunch of mares. I mean, it was full-on breeding place here, and pretty hardcore, lots of numbers. Talk about that.
It did. It went quick. That year that come back and show that first set of colts, I'd had an amazing start. Like I'd done good at Augusta on a mare Glade already had, a little $5,000 novice horse, and there was some early success that was, I think, so fortunate for Glade to, he let him trust me, or the way it went. But when we got to the ranch and it got going that quick, was really because of Playdocs and Chance. And I bought another horse about the middle of the year, Starlight's Gypsy. Anyway, I finished that set of horses off. When we go to the Futurity, they all make the finals. Craig Emmerton comes and shows Starlight's Gypsy, and we all make the finals. And there again, I rush at the end of the run, ruin it on Playdocs to win it, and but it was such a start, and it kicked us into gear.
Yeah.
And I can remember telling Glade, if you want to make some money out of me, now's the time. Like I was new, I was young, was going hard. We had some success, and he looked at me and said, "I think we'll just do what we're doing." And probably the best thing he's ever said to me. And so but it really did go quick from that point. What you just said before, that we got going with that stud.
Yeah.
Then we've got another one and more mares. We're riding a lot of horses. We're riding 30 head horses a day, like an age group, like 32s, and where it got going quick, and it really did get big. And that was probably a dream of mine in a way. But when I got to know Glenn, we'd agreed on, that's what he wanted. He wanted a ranch, like a cut and horse ranch, like a whole deal.
Yep.
And it just fit me, and that's what he wanted, but it fit me. I'm really that way. I love breeding horses. I love doing the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But to go through the years and get to what you asked me, it got so big and so much, and he reflected on why he was doing it. And truthfully, he did it to do it with his boys and show and have, so all the babies and all that stuff were fun, but it just got so big.
Yeah.
And when we analysed it, and we thought, well, if we just keep the good mares, we'll just breed to the horses that everyone like.
Right.
As a comment in a conversation. But that's where I think it sort of met a crossroads, and it really opened it up for us. It changed the game.
Well, and it went from, like you said, you were riding the produce from the ranch. So it was restricted on what bloodlines you had to work with and what you had to choose to ride, and you had to train what you had to go show it.
Yep.
And that paid off. I mean, in 2008, 2010, 2016, Slate River Ranch was the top breeder and top owner, and then came back for another 2 years on top breeder. So it was definitely working.
Yes.
But the financial side of it and the workload and everything else then led you to say, okay, well, we're gonna drop it down, and talk about some of the mares then that ended up at the top of the pile. How did you go from those numbers and all those studs to now changing tack?
Yeah. Well, I think it was I've always stuck to what I thought how good a horse was, and you've got to have record for the public, but you don't have to have record to have a good horse. It's a balance. It's if you want to be a horseman and study genetics, conformation, and you want to truthfully stick to that, you've got to bite your lip a little bit and stay hooked with someone's going to cull us. Hadn't done this or hadn't done that. Yeah. But we still had enough mares that were over 100,000 and da-da-da-da-da. But when we did make the shift back, it was just a natural flow as it went, because them mares, them special mares, like early days, playing Fancy Peppy. Mm-hmm. Like, I still got colts out of it now, and I worked a mare this morning. She's so smart, it's unbelievable. She knows more about a cow than anyone, Yeah. And that mare was that great. Well, then it just goes on and on with mares, but really, Bob Smart Chance started it. Yeah. It was before. It was a couple of years before that Playboy mare. So she's third at the Futurity. I showed her, I don't even remember showing her, I was that disappointed I'd screwed it up on Playdocs. So, you know, them quality mares. She was a bull bagged dog out of a full sister Smartly Lena.
Yeah.
Like what genetics, you know.
Yeah.
It was all there all along. So I've always really tried to chase genetics. Playboy was probably my favourite horse of all times. And I've tried to keep that in there. And Gladesdale was Bob Agerdock at the time. And as I went on, you know, you hear good and bad about all of them. But as I worked through them horses that he had, boy, they were outstanding, like fast and they could bend. And I mean, it was something that now I look back and think, man, I wish I had more of them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, then transitioning from that, you've now, you know, you've refocused the program. You're still showing it a lot. You're going down the road and hauling these boats, promoting the program. COVID hits.
Yep.
Talk to us about what happened next.
Well, that was a little dampening. I've never, you know, as you know, but I've never heard Glade ever like even have a backward murmur in his voice. And this guy's like always said to me, if someone's not pulling their weight, just speed the train up. Get on or get off. You know, that's his words, you know. And so when I heard like, hey, let's, you know, well, let's just say it how it was. He reassured me I had a job.
Yeah.
And so he made me comfortable.
Right.
And then the next words were basically, let's shut it down for a couple of years and, you know, get a hold of everything. And I was like, whoa, all right, you know, that's fair enough. But he said, let's show the Futurity horses. So you got to focus, just keep. But he said, you know, really, really pull it up. So, you know, I definitely listened that day. It sunk in. I had all the show horses out that night in pastures 4 deep. And I thought, well, if I save no more shavings, no more this, no more that, and I would, you know, do my job.
Yeah.
And, you know, that passed and by the Brazos Bash that first year, I think he showed. And they come and enjoyed it, and him and Nelson showed. And but prior to that, I think I was allowed to show, and I showed 2 horses at the Derby, but I had to pay my entries.
Really?
And he said, you can show whatever you want, but you pay, you keep whatever you win. I said, well, it's not going to look good, but there won't be many going. Yeah. You know, it's just not the same deal. But it was good. It was good, and it's amazing what tough times does.
Yeah. Like,
it doesn't matter when it comes, but it's amazing because it jerked everyone in the gear around here and made lots of little changes that will forever be in place.
Yeah.
You know, it's just how it happens, and we go on.
Well, how much of how you started, and like you talked earlier about, like, you know, learning how to starve and train at the same time. I mean, how much that's basically all of a sudden that you kind of have little flashbacks.
Yeah, well, that's, and when you've been in them positions, they come back real quick. Yeah. You know, them thoughts, and you adjust because you've had to adjust before, and that's what it is. And it's like I say, I think it's amazing. It's amazing what it done. Basically, because I've never thought of it until you got me talking about it there. But it's really, it sure didn't hurt, did it? No,
I don't think so. Well, so leading from that, and maybe Glade was smarter than all of us, because now your focus, you've gone back to a skeleton staff here. You've got the show horses turned out, and you're going back to getting more involved in the foundation, the 2-year-old program that used to be more, you know, you were still involved, but maybe not as much. Now all of a sudden you're way more involved with that. And that was where you first started working Janie Wood.
Yeah, it's so true. And to go back a little further than that, from day one, he's told me, don't spend your time on an average horse.
Right.
And I did fail to listen for about 20 years, I think.
Yeah.
Like I failed to hear that deep enough, and was told by him, he's the boss, and also told by Graham. Like, Graham drilled that into me. Yeah. When he come over and seen what was going on early days. Yeah. He's like, why are you doing this? Yeah. This is not, this is not what it's going to take. And I didn't believe them. I thought it took numbers and working harder.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. So really, yes, it has come back to that when you say with the little deal with COVID, focusing and being a part of the whole horse. And it still comes back to what I always wanted to be anyway, as a horseman.
Yeah.
Like, you get off track a little bit along your way in your career trying to win.
Yeah.
But still, all that said, you're still learning all the time. You're still going through a process of learning. And so, yes, it's brought everything back in a little tighter and all together a bit more. And it's really done that, yes.
Yeah. Talk about your first ride on Janie Wood.
Boy, you're pushing me, Mark. Ron Gonzalez was here with me that year, and she stood out. I mean, she stood out to him straight away too. And just when they started him on a cow, she hooked up, and a lot of cow, but I really, I think I just took a group of horses over, like, because I had time.
Sure.
So it wasn't just her. I think there was 5 or 6 in the whatever there was that year. That wouldn't have been probably 20 horses, or if at the most, or maybe. But I took over 5 or 6, and some of them I took over right there and then didn't make it. Yeah. But it was what it was. Yeah. But yes, definitely the involvement didn't hurt. Yeah. All the way.
So here we are, we come to the Futurity, first go around, and I happen to be sitting up behind when you showed Janie Wood for the first time, and I'm watching her, and all I could think about is a mother Janie Wood.
Yeah,
Talk about some of the characteristics that you feel sitting in that saddle between those two.
It developed. As you know, I didn't train Junie. Yep. And so I got that mare after she was training, and so I had to. Well, what I did is when I got Junie, my goal was to get along. So she cut for Glade at the Super Stakes because we bought it for Futurity. So the only objective at that point was get along with this horse, figure it out, and make sure she cuts for him at the Super Stakes. Yeah. And the rest history. But this mare, as getting to be so similar to her, it happened as it went. It wasn't just there, cowy and smart and all that, yes. Yeah. But she even, she's got, as a finished horse, her form to function so much like her, it's crazy. Yeah. Like the way that she developed, how she does it, it's crazy.
Well, that was the uncanny thing that we all noticed. The way that head and neck came through there, and just dragging across the dirt, and the way that was just a stamp of Junie.
Yeah, totally.
And all the pictures we got, and
the speed. Yeah. The speed, but being controlled. Yeah. Both them mares would stay with me feet. Yeah. They would stay with me, but they were so fast. Yeah. You could dictate something like wait, go a bit further, no, go on. And they read that, and I remember it was probably the middle of the year when Janie, she started to know when I wanted to trap the cow, like instead of just working and working on fundamentals, like when I cut a good cow there about middle of the year, I'd move her to the outside, and she never went out like out. Right. She went out and in.
Got tighter.
And I moved her body, but she come in, and then she would do the same thing here. Well, that creates a pocket. All of a sudden, you got 4 and 5 turns in a rally that she knew we dominated. Mm-hmm. It was off your left foot, off your right foot, off your. She just, and I'm like, just built that the real deal. This is what it is. This is what a mother could do. Yeah. And so. That did evolve as later on, like normal, all the younger stuff, you just do it and go through the routines and make sure you're steady and consistent. And she always was smart. But it come together to where she's so similar, it's uncanny.
Yeah. So then you're tied for the top score in the first go around. Do really well in the second go round. I think second highest score in the second round, and you're sitting tied for the top aggregate after 2 rounds. Now you've got the non-pro starting the next day, and you've got 10 days, whatever it was, till the semis. Was there ever any doubt whether Glade was going to show Jeannie?
No. He was going to show that mare, and we've, like you say, we've done that for years. But and I suppose the position I'm in, that's what we do. And I've always looked at it a little bit more like an owner than just a trainer because of Dad, I think. It's not about me. I've got a job, and so yeah. And then you watched him show her. I mean, he marks 19.
Yeah.
Doesn't even get out of third gear. And he showed so good. She let him cut his cows and bang, and we didn't even ruffle a feather. And then he comes back, shows the second go around. Same thing, 2 cows, good as you like. He sees a black cow out of the corner of his eye, and after he quit that third count, I'm yelling, no. And he's looking, and he's like, looks at me and like, doesn't grin, but because he's serious, but he's wanting to go, and I'm like, no.
Well, he's watched you do it all these years.
Exactly. So he comes back in there, and we get him talked into, dying, and he makes the cut easy, and then that's when we hit a rough evening. I was driving home after that, the day after, I think, and Justin calls, and I wasn't, normally if he calls early in the morning I worry, but I wasn't worried in the evening, but he said, where are you? And I said, halfway home. He said, come straight to the barn. I said, okay, what's wrong? He said, well, just come straight to the barn. So I knew something was wrong. I called Glade, I said, where are you? He said, I'm sitting in the office in Fort Worth. Because I thought he'd be down the back, see, and back to where he stays. And he said, I'm in the office. I said, all right. I said, listen, I just got the worst phone call. Something's wrong with the man. And he said, no. I said, yeah. I said, but I'll call you, I'll call you. When I got here, she was pointing her offside front foot and wasn't standing on a near side hind. And I don't know what it was this year. I didn't panic. I didn't panic through the pre-works. I didn't have that normal rush, of getting ready. And I kept trying to just, Mum always says, keep the faith, and I really tried to do it. And so I didn't panic, but so I called the vet, and it's now 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And he was on a conference call. He said, I'll be there as soon as I can. Well, at that point I haven't panicked, but I'm not wanting to be real patient either.
Right, yeah.
So
need answers now.
Yeah, so I go, and I got a shower room back behind the barn there where I get ready to go to town. I went and sat down for a while, and 5 minutes. And I thought, what, best thing I can do is wrap this mare's feet. Try to sweat that, draw that abscess. There's got to be an abscess. Yeah. She hasn't got 2 broken legs.
Right.
We worked her this morning. Yeah. She was fine.
Yeah.
And never been sore, no dramas. Yeah. So we wrapped the feet, and Ty come by that next morning, and he blocked a foot. Boom. Yep. Down she went. Yep. And so okay, now we know we're good. We're not good, because she's still sore, right. But sweat it, get these abscesses to bust, and we've got a shot. And I think we were 8 days or whatever from the end, or 6 from Glade showing again, right. Or whatever. And she's improving, but very slowly. Yeah. We sweat there, and we finally get to where I'm getting a bit concerned. So. We end up going to more heavier sweats. We put some bar shoes on her, got her foot off the ground. We sweated her, pretty damn heavy there. I had Joe Carter, he always helps me, and works on horses, and so we'd had 2 vets look at her by this time, and we're, sweating, and put some shoes on her, but the way she went, she started to get better. And Joe was actually the one that talked to Glade and said, look, I think, to try and get her ready and show her Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if it went right.
Yeah.
I don't know that, the old feet can take all that. So the few extra days, obviously everyone made the right decision.
Yeah.
Because she was sound by the semi-finals. For me, she was.
Well, 224.
Yeah, she was sailing. Her neck had got when they saw their old neck stiff, and she started to move her old neck and trot out there and go, and so that was the always something.
Yep.
But that was the drama this year for us.
Well, and you're not getting to work her during this time. For a horse trainer that's got one qualified for the open semis and the clock's ticking, that's all nerve-wracking.
You're wanting to work, and we kept, even when she was sore, we'd walk her.
Yeah.
We'd saddle her and walk her, because it's with an abscess to make that foot work, and it's going to pump blood, and it's going to pump it. It's going to get it out quicker than leaving a standing stall.
Yeah.
And I knew the kiss of death was to leave her in the stall, because the muscles and then tying up and all that was going to be a factor. So it come through.
Yeah. Well, and then going back, obviously now you've marked that 224. Feeling's got to be pretty good right now. The confidence level's gone back up again, I'm sure. What was it? What was your approach, your mindset, so to speak, going into the finals that night? You're in the first set. You're fairly deep in that first set. Two sets of very deep. I mean, the cutting, the quality this year was just unphenomenal. Just we've never seen it like that before.
No, and like at the start of Futurity, just to jump back, like I'm sitting there watching. I try to watch all the horses, and it was like you're watching the Derby. Mm-hmm. Like the standard and the standard of trained horses was huge, but I didn't waver. I'm not making it up. It's not because it's a good ending.
Yeah.
It was work them here in the morning.
Yeah.
Go to town, watch the cows, know the cattle.
Yeah.
And show me yours. So I stuck to it.
Yeah.
I didn't waver. Yeah. I didn't worry about the scores. They're fun to have. Like they're fun because it's going on. It's progressing forward. But it's the first time I let nothing change me.
Yeah. Well, and then the score comes up, there's celebrations all around. You've put out the best run in your mind. I mean, you cut the cows you wanted to cut, everything fit to place, everything went as planned or better.
Yep.
Now you've got to wait another set.
Yeah, it was one of them things I suppose, I don't know, I don't know why, but I can't, I can't ever see or hear somebody and accept it. I don't like it. I don't like when you see someone waiting to win and wishing someone to lose. I don't like that. I've competed in everything all my life in different sports. So honestly, it was, I'd had my run. Mm-hmm. They'd already marked Austin in 24. When I went around the edge of that judge's stand and I seen that 30, I thought it will take a heck of a run to beat me, knowing full well it could happen.
Yeah.
And when I got off my horse, I don't know how Matt Gaines helped me and give me whatever drink that was. I don't know how he pulled that off. I was at the bridle rack, and I seemed to stay at the bridle rack for the whole second set and the settling. And I had a couple of old buddies come and stand around there with me, and they just kept buying drinks, and I just kept having a whiskey with them. And I didn't watch the second set. You don't want to win it. The only way to win it and love it is if you won it.
Yeah.
So you don't have any of that other stuff go on. But it was just one of them things that just happened. I never even planned to stand there.
Yeah.
It just happened that we stood there, and they kept filling that cup up with whatever they had, and it was amazing. And you'd hear all the screaming, and I just didn't look up. I didn't get into it. I just made sure I stayed right. And but like you say, when you got all them horses to come, like you're far from,
And it wasn't just one or two. I mean, and it came down to the last horse that gave you probably the biggest run for your money.
The last horse.
Cara Brewer.
Yep.
And that 227.5 pops up.
Yep.
And she's reserve champion.
Yep.
I mean, was there a doubt in your mind? You said you didn't watch the run, but
I didn't watch.
Yeah.
I just, I knew if I was to win it, I was going to win it.
Yep.
And if not,
wasn't meant to be.
It wasn't meant to be. And I don't think anyone could have ever looked at me and said I didn't give it all with the 230.
Yeah.
If it was to be beaten.
Yeah.
And I know standing there, with the, I think it was Morty. Morty come out. I didn't even know Morty was there.
Yeah.
And he comes and stands around Greg Jolly, and then all the people coming by and telling you good job. But it was different how it happened because it wasn't planned. We just stood at the bridle rack.
Yeah.
It just stood there.
Just never moved.
Like we just stayed there. Like it was like we just hovered there. And I stand there, and Bill Riddle and Austin were visiting there for a bit, and but we just stood there.
Yeah.
It was just where we were.
There's so much, and like what we've talked about today. I mean, there was so much that went to leading up to that moment.
Yes.
And made that all happen.
Totally.
That it was just, I think it was such a popular win. You had everybody behind you, everybody that's been in the sport knows how hard you've worked and how much Glade and Nelson have invested into this. And as a team, I mean, it's always been a team effort with you guys.
Totally.
And that's what's so cool to see the success come after all that, with that.
Yeah, for sure. And the... Like I said in that other deal, it's amazing, like I've talked to people that I haven't talked to for 8 years, 9 years or something, and people genuinely happy for you.
Yeah.
It's an awesome, that's an awesome feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and like you said, you spoke to Roger.
Yeah, Roger, he said, all of them, when I say all of them, the few guys that grew up with and everything that aren't here, because most of them are here.
Right.
What about giving Flinny a kiss? That was perfect.
That was awesome.
But they all waited a couple of days because they knew the phone blowing up and everything going on.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk to Roger till yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's just they all very supportive and happy for me, I suppose,
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up, something that I ask a lot of the guys in the trainer spotlight, so mentors, who are your mentors? And I think the guys that know you all know, and there's three names that stand out, and that's Graham Amos, Mouse, who you've already talked about, Gary Belafonte, and Larry Reeder. Talk a little bit about what those three guys have meant to your whole program.
Yeah, well, Graham's a reason. Graham made us, like, the kids that work for Graham, like, you are who you are, but you definitely molded as a kid. Like, now, I've got kids, and Jack's riding bulls and Jade's roping, and it's amazing how much he molded us, making us think, like, he's told us from day one, if you want a horse to be good, you've got to treat him like family. You can't rough him up for no reason, and you got to treat him like family. Like, them words are big, but he would like ram that into you. Like, if you got off track a bit, like, you can't do that. Like, I remember telling Phil Rapp, Graham would say it was 2 weeks for the Futurity. All that rough stuff's over, boys. You better get the silk gloves out.
Yeah.
You better get them to where they like you.
Got to polish them up.
And so Graham was the reason. Graham made me think, like, the things I've said before, straight out of his mouth, of what I've repeated for years to people that I've tried to help, is, you go and have a run on Sunday. That's why I never weekend horses that much, but you go and have a run. And to win, you basically lie to them. because you push them a little bit further than what you would to get a more drastic stop, a more drastic turn. Well, what did you watch me do on Saturday night on the black ball, like the blinders? Like I had to ride out there to get a hold of her. She was plenty. But he always told us to go back and apologise, like basically say sorry. Go do what you do every day and teach them to handle them situations, but you don't prey on them situations. So he made me think. I give him all the credit to make me want to become as good a horseman as him. He put that in me for sure, because he just did. It's the way he treated us. He talked to us. He talked to us with passion about getting a horse to understand you, not just do this, do that.
Right.
Like get a horse to understand what you want. Well, then, you know, truthfully over here, there's been several guys, but Gary's so much like Graham, but he's just the American version. Like Graham is going to grab a snaffle bit, and Gary is going to grab a hackmore. And they can do whatever they want to do with the horse, whenever they want to do with it, and that horse will understand and they can get it done. So that showed me that it's not, Graham always said it, but watching Gary be Gary and Graham be Graham, two different deals and they're identical.
Right.
So I was told as a kid, it's not what you put in their mouth. You know, you don't get a bigger stop from a bigger bit. You don't get a fast horse from sharper spurs. You know, you got to train them and you got to have them understanding. So them two were just living examples,
right,
because I watched them, you know. So that's where that come together. Larry, I become friends with Larry at the horse sales and that when I was first here, and he watched me and he finally, you know, he'd come and talk, and then he became a friend, and it was like he was such a good speaker too, like he could get it across to you. So I come a long way later on in his career, like he was basically done, like he showed a bit, but he wasn't like the 150 horses and Kathy Dawn's era and all that. But I got to know him so well and spend time with him and go out there and stay. But his deal was getting back to the middle of the cow. And that's what he gave me. And I don't know that while he was still here, I ever got it just right for him. But I know I've worked my ass off ever since, and he's finally, I've got a horse where they know where the middle of the cow is, you know, and he truthfully give me that. But I had the encouragement and support, and like, no, I suppose it just the way it is for me, but them older guys always gravitated to them. Mm-hmm. They've always, for what lack of a better word, but I've always got along with them. They always I enjoyed talking to them. You know, it's just like, you know, Dick Gaines, like he helped me as much as anyone in just the little things he'd say to you, you know, and guide you through things just from a comment. Mm-hmm. And you know, and I was friends with Dick. Like, I mean, I'd talk to him a lot of mornings for years, you know, and so it was the support of them older guys that have already lived it, and I think they love seeing a young guy not just respect them, but see the value in what they've got to offer because of experience or something like that. There's some connection there that is definitely for me.
Yeah, I think, you know, like we talked about Paul and Winston earlier, and when you talk about, you know, learning about the training a cutting horse, Paul and Winston, you know, right up there, and they're willing to share their information. They're all about seeing something, telling you, doing that. These other guys that we've just talked about, those four guys, you've got to go earn their respect.
Yep.
You've got to look between the lines, because every one of those guys, Dick maybe not as much, but those other three, they're men of very few words.
Very few.
And you have to be able to read between the lines
To get there.
And they're not going to share that with anybody, but they all see something in you. And I saw that from early on, but they saw, your desire to win and desire to get better.
And I think it's something to do, Mark, with the horsemanship and the quality.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I think, only time I ever worked a horse with Terry Riddle was when I went and bought one. Mm-hmm. I bought a mare off him one year. That guy, I love sitting and talking to that guy. Mm-hmm. But you know what? He enjoyed sitting and talking to me.
Yeah.
Like you gelled. That guy's one of the best horse trainers ever was. Mm-hmm. I didn't work with, but I talked to him a lot and had a conversation. Pat Earnhardt.
Yeah.
Pat put in hours of talking to me. Mm-hmm. Drove out to the house when he was sick, and to be honest, it was a massive influence. Like he told me, just get some reruns, put them up against the fence, and work. Stop fussing about the perfect stuff.
Yeah.
Work them sorry cows off the fence, and just get to where you can hold them.
Well, he made a living doing it.
And seriously, this is the first year that I've ever trained horses that I just stayed working flat for 4 or 5 months. Yeah. Just to get to where it was a matter of hold the cow. Yeah. And that's how I started when I come over, because that's why you have fresh cattle.
Right.
So you can work flat.
Yep.
And but it's something. Them guys, like, my box now, because they put the ramp in, it's down by Matt. But I looked over there because we had some friends sitting there and stuff. But after the photo and everything, Matt walked back across and grabbed me, and we both had a tear in our eye. And he said, "If Dad was sitting right there, he'd be proud of you." Yeah. I always sat there, and all them old guys sat there. Yeah. It was amazing.
Yeah. And I can guarantee they're all up there. They're smiling down, because all those conversations, they all feel like they were a part of you that night and part of that run. And that's what's cool about this sport. And that's the thing with those older guys is, if you're willing to learn and if you're willing to look between the lines, you're willing to work for it and seek it and not draw attention to yourself.
They'll show up.
That's where those guys will, and they'll help you more than anybody else.
And they all did for me. It's amazing when I think of that. It's them guys we mentioned, like they did, like, it's like, it's crazy. But that's been special to me. But I've always respected them guys,
Yeah. Well, and that just justifies everything that they saw in you and what you sought out from them, and I think it all came together that night, and it was just a perfect night for you and for the Slate River Ranch and for Glade Nelson. And so talk about a little bit now. I mean, your family, Hope's heavily involved, obviously, here with the program, and then and your kids, Jade, she's a breakaway. She is breaking away now.
She's doing good. She's 16 and got a license, and she's roping every chance she can, and she still loves the cutting. But touching on the family thing, Mark, it's something that probably needs to be said, but I think it's got a lot to do with the success, that happened this year. Is I've finally grown up and we've got 2 good kids, and Hope's done an unbelievable job with them, and now they're old enough, they're basically self-sufficient, that she's been able to be more of a part. But that's the picture. But I think I finally got to a point that the horses weren't just everything to me, and the win or whatever. There's the whole picture. I think I'd finally found that the kids and Hope and the family and things in life with, maturity and time had become probably in line, we'll say, like in line. And so it was like coming into the Futurity this year, I didn't have them weeks or days or whatever, just fighting my head, I found myself, I was at a bull ride on Sunday before the Futurity started, and I went to sleep on the grass because it was 2 perfs, and he had 2 to get on, and I was comfortable, and I was like, this couldn't have happened before. I wouldn't have let it happen. You know, it was too much of a big deal, and I think there's a lot in that for me.
Yeah.
Like I definitely had found, you know, I didn't lose the want to win. I didn't stop showing up to work on time. I did everything the same, but I just think in my heart, I'd found a little bit more balance.
Put in perspective.
Yeah, I really think that. Yeah. So that, you know, that's personal, but I think it's something to do with it.
Well, I think that's a big part of it, and put your head in the right place to be able to deal with that moment of pressure. You know, totally. Do I cut this cow? Do I cut that cow? I mean, it all leads into that decision-making process.
Yeah, and if you've already been through all them situations, you've been exposed, you've got the experience, but just having what I'm talking about, I think really helped the whole preparation for the year. Yeah. The way we worked, what we did, we had some time off, you know, and didn't work them back some days when they weren't quite good enough, and I think that, you know, something else that can be said that's maybe interesting to someone is I think last year I accepted that nothing's perfect.
You heard it here first.
I just it was something I've always struggled with is trying to apply myself to the, you know, you're supposed to try your hardest. You're supposed to never give in, and that can be misleading. So it's like that. But that's truthfully just growing up. But, you know, I never I never accepted brilliance. I wanted more, and I never forget at Comet Futurity one time, it's non-pro Futurity, I messed the finals up, and I got back to the trailer, and it was just on dark, and Graham comes moseying over, and turned back horse and tied him to the truck, and he says, well, until you learn there's no higher place than first, you're going to mess a lot up. And boy, I wish that sunk in quicker.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago, and but I felt like I wasn't given it all, you know, and I was given too much. Yeah. So that's probably a lot of them things finally come together, and maybe it's just age.
Well, now that you've kind of come to this point in life, it's kind of scary to think what you're going to win here in the next year or two.
I hope you're right. Yeah, I hope you're right. But, yeah, that'd be nice, huh?
Yeah. Well, John, I've personally, you know, been lucky enough to know you for 31 years, and I've been one of the guys that you've helped, along with hundreds of other guys that I've spoken to over the years that you've been a part of their program, and so. For all of us, I mean, it all makes it just justifies and helps us be a part of that win with you. Just seeing the success kind of come to it. There's nobody that's worked harder at it than you, mate. I tell you what, I couldn't be more proud of you, brother.
Thanks, man.
Love you.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.